Well, who doesn't like roses, especially to paint one? Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, and if you are new here, my name is Agda and I am botanical watercolor artist. I teach regularly on Patreon and Skillshare, and here on YouTube channel I share shorter versions of all my classes. So this week we are painting this beautiful white peachy rose, and I will show you the process we took to paint it and all the necessary techniques. And if you would like to follow step by step along with me, then join my Patreon community. So let's move along with the video, and you can see me now mixing the colors for this beautiful rose. So I'm gonna start with my neutral, so the gray color. And while I usually like to mix all of my own pigments like greens rather than using pre-mix, but when it comes to gray I like to use neutral tint and adjust its hue by adding more blue or more yellow. And that is because I found that it doesn't separate on the paper, while when you mix 3 primary colors to mix your gray, it often does, and I just don't like it, so it works that way with me. Next, I'm mixing this peachy color, so a combination of yellow and pink to create this very vibrant peachy shade. Also gonna need this very dark, you can see towards the center of the rose, dark burgundy color. And that is it for now, and later on I'm gonna mix more colors like some greens that you can see I'm gonna need, but for now those mixes will do. So first I would like to start with the under layer. So the flower is white when you look at it, but you can see here in the photograph that it's anything but white. So it has lots of gray, peachy, green tones. So overall it looks like it's a white flower, but it has lots of different colors. So to take the edge of that whiteness of the paper, I want to give this underlayer with my basic colors. So because if you look at a flower, it doesn't have very white highlights, so every single petal is tinted with some gray or peachy color. So that's what I'm gonna do for that basic underlayer. I'm gonna lay down my gray and a little bit of peachy color towards the center. So as you can see, I'm completely ignoring the green color. That will go towards the end once all of my gray shadow colors and tonal values are painted in. So you want to keep your mixes fairly light and very transparent, nothing heavy, no sticky paint. So watercolors are meant to be painted in very delicate way and transparently. So always keep your watercolors very watery, I would say, and transparent and very light. So before that glaze dries, I also lift off a little bit from the lightest parts of my petals. So now the hardest part perhaps is separating all those beautiful petals. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start painting little petal at a time using very transparent, very watery colors, and I'm gonna lay them over and over again until I get the tonal values that I need. So, but I'm focusing now mainly on that peachy color first, and you can see me here demonstrating how I'm gonna build those colors. So I'm starting with very light color first, let it dry, paint somewhere else, come back and put some more color on top of it, and just layer like that over and over again until I get the tonal values that look like in my reference photo. And so after a few layers I can start adding my darker color. And so I'm gonna focus towards the center of the rose, separating all these small petals so that I start getting a guide of, where is what. Painting flowers like these that have so many petals and it looks quite busy and complicated and has so many different shapes to paint, it reminds me of a jigsaw puzzle, because you're piecing the flower together piece by piece, little shape at a time, little square, little triangle. So that's what it's like. So we're piecing that flower into 3-dimensional object, just little shape at a time. And to be fair, that is my favorite, rather than painting a flower that has just a few very big petals. And I find it painting something that has so much detail easier, rather than trying to create very smooth transitions and colors on big one-piece petals. So yeah, so that's the step right now, until we start moving into the outer petals and bigger petals and bigger, longer brush strokes. Just one thing to remember is every time you want to come back to the area that you already painted and apply another layer, you need to make sure that you let that first layer dry completely, because if you start applying color on slightly damp surface, you might start lifting off the color underneath and disturb the settling layer. So you do want to wait just a few seconds before you return to the area and apply more color. As I build my way through the center part of the rose with my peachy color, I start noticing that I'm getting the tonal values that I need, and now I need to reach out for my that dark burgundy color and start applying those darkest tones. So now we started moving into the outer petals and covering the rest of the flower, and now it's very important, even more so, that you keep your mixes and your colors quite watery and transparent, because now you have to cover this bigger area and leave smooth transitions from darker into lighter. And you want to water down your mixes and keep those petals more delicate, because as they move into the outer edges, they are lighter and softer, while the center has more saturated colors. So keep your pigments very watery. And now I'm gonna start introducing my gray colors into the petals that lose that peachy color. So again, just keep everything very light and transparent and build your color gradually. So now we're fully moving towards the last petals around the flower, and they have more detail, more shadow, more tonal differences and values. And now I have my second brush on hand to soften every little glaze that I make, so that every single shadow I paint I can quickly soften and not leave any hard edges, so everything looks very light and delicate. So now it's really time for that fun part where we see our flower transform, because we're going to be adding this green color on our outer petals. So we want to mix up this very light, fresh looking green that's dominating with our yellow, and keep it very, very light as well. I'm adding a little bit more warm yellow for certain few petals, and now we're gonna really dilute our green color and glaze it over those gray pale petals, and you can see how it immediately transforms the flower and makes it look like what we see now in a reference photo. And again, the main rule here, keep your mixes very transparent, light and watery, and soften any hard edges of your glaze with a clean, damp brush. So now the last part of painting, which is where I usually, in my opinion, transform any ordinary painting into a great one. So that is dry brush. It's my favorite technique. So that's where I pick up my smallest brush and I dry brush my entire painting, in this case entire rose, every single petal. And what I do with dry brush, I enhance the color, because now I can focus on my subject in really great detail and in a smaller area, and I notice more things than I do when I paint and focus on a flower as a whole or a petal as a whole. Now I focus just a few millimeter area and I notice more detail, and I try to match the reference photo that way, with small brush strokes, with very dry but watery but transparent pigment. I just enhance every little shadow, lines, and dry brush entire petal to create this very velvety and smooth texture, which is what I like and perhaps one of my signature looks of every painting. So I'll go from top to bottom, dry brushing entire flower, just focusing on great detail. And as I did that, I realized that some of the petals were lacking this gold bloom, so I very gently glazed over with some Quinacridone Gold to give this gold shine on some of the petals. And that's it. So as soon as I'm done with the dry brush and enhancing the last detail, the flower is finished. And in the next part we will paint some of the rose leaves around the flower itself. So stay tuned. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, then thumbs up, subscribe, and perhaps leave a comment. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.